Let's do it. Let's do it. Maddie, welcome to Spark TV. I'm so excited.
I've listened to so many of these. I'm like, I'm ready. I'm prepared. I've got my notes written. I'm good to go.
Oh my God. Well, I'm so glad because I have no notes. I'm just making it up as I go along. So I'm glad one of us is actually prepared for this conversation.
Oh, of course.
Oh, so good. Now, if anyone dialing in doesn't know this, Maddie is the amazing person who actually means that Spark TV gets out onto the interwebs.
I bring it off the ground. Yes, I do all the back stuff. Danny is the amazing face of it, but I do the actually get it from her brain out into the world, really.
Which I'm glad somebody does, because otherwise all I would do is talk on Zoom and no one would know about it.
You just have a good half an hour and then,
you go off into the sunset. Oh my God. So let's start there. So let's tell everyone, this is going to be one of those chats where we're just like, this is what we do.
It is.
So let's tell everyone what you do, what Harness Creation is, all of the amazing things, so we can set the scene.
Okay, so Harness Creation, funnily enough, did not originally start for podcast editing. I know. I originally the idea was content creation studio for influencers. So we had the podcast studio, I had the filming studio and photography set outside. And then as it's kind of gone, it has really morphed into this whole other beast. So now I also do social media management for people. I edit podcasts for people. And it's also usually not even for influencers anymore. It is mostly for businesses. So yeah, that's kind of like a quick summary of the business now.
So cool. And I think that's how we originally got connected was, influencers coming into the space, doing shoots, all the sales goodness. And then it's like you telling me how important podcasts were, and then me going, cool, can you help me? So
you came to my launch, which was honestly retrospectively, I mean, at the time it was a slight disaster as well, but retrospectively, I'm like, there were only like 3 people showed up, and I was kind of like, oh, wow, realities of business are setting in early.
It's the worst.
Oh, really? It really, yeah. Oh, well, I learned my lesson early on, I guess. You got to fail hard and fast.
Totally. And I mean, I don't think that ever ends, unfortunately.
Oh, so true.
We were just chatting before we hit record, and that's so it, right? Like there's all of these things to do. There's all of these ideas. Half of them don't work. And then you're and it's so exciting having all the ideas. And then, the business reality is you actually have to follow through with them. You actually have to do the shit stuff as well.
Oh, yeah. I think we discussed this late last year. I started a second business, Prop HQ, which I've already sold. Yeah.
Oh, so, cool. I was going to ask you what happened to that.
Yeah. So I started, it was like a hiring party equipment type of situation. And I did a partnership with my brother. He was he had the bigger percentage in the business. But I kind of was like doing all of because I had the experience with Harness, I was doing all of the like social media, and I set up the whole website. And probably like 6 to 8 weeks into it, I was like, I cannot do this for 2 businesses. This is not like, the reality is not meshing with the vision in my head. So we sold it like really quickly. Yeah.
That's amazing. How did that even happen? How did you sell a business after like 2 months? We have this idea. Now we're going to sell it.
Oh, literally, wait till I tell you, it was on freaking Facebook Marketplace. We sold the business on Marketplace.
Holy shit, really?
For a profit.
Oh my God. This is so good.
I know. Crazy, absolutely crazy. So we kind of just bought all of the stock from someone, was how it started. And then 2 months in, we'd set up the website, we'd done all the social media, kind of getting a little bit of traction, enough to be covering the rent that we were paying. And then we were like, we don't want this anymore. Let's just see what happens. And literally, I think it was in about 2 weeks, it was gone. So
oh my God, that is so good. It's so funny. Like, everyone talks about selling businesses like it's this super crazy, and, it depends on the type of business you have and all that kind of stuff. But when we sold The Answer, which was our hand sanitizer, bathroom stuff, e-commerce business, It was the same. Like I had this grand plan of, okay, here's all the people I'm going to talk to. This is like business directory listing site where you can sell businesses. And it was literally this chick that saw our product in a store, saw on our Instagram that we were closing down and reached out. And it was like, and so none of my plans, none of my strategic grand plans worked.
Oh, it is very, I've been talking with a couple of people who, because I actually have a physical location for the studio. So I've been talking, I've got all my neighbors, I've been talking to some of them, and they've kind of been like, oh, you know, I think I'm ready to start planning my exit strategy. And I'm like, you don't need an exit strategy. Like it is way easier to do it than you think it is.
I know. And maybe we just got lucky and then everyone else is like, you liars, you said it would be easy.
Yeah, that's probably true. Someone's going to message me after this and be like, I thought I could do it in 2 weeks. So. Yeah.
Oh my God. I know, but it is really interesting. I think that's just like a good business lesson, right? Best laid plans don't always work out. And sometimes just trying random things that you might think don't work out or won't work out actually are the things that work. So.
Oh, absolutely. I remember one of my biggest, so my mum is a business consultant. So I had a lot of advice from her kind of before I started. And one of the things that she said right when I was opening, which has really stuck with me, was she was like, your business is not going to look what you think it's going to look like in 1 year. That's a really bad way of saying that, but you know what I mean? Like it's going to be completely different in a year. And at first I was like, no, I've come up with the ideal model. But now
I know everything, Mum.
literally 23 years old. I was like, I can do this. Your 20 years of experience means nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, business consultant. Thanks, successful businesswoman.
God, literally. So it is just one of those things where it's like, you just cannot be, you can't be stuck in your way of thinking. You have to be fluid. It's the only way to succeed, really, because if something goes wrong, you have to be able to like pivot. If something's going right, you have to be like, okay, well, I have to follow that, you know?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is so true. Like, it's, I feel like people think that they've failed if the plan they originally had doesn't pan out. But I think you're right. It's like, don't expect the plan to work out.
Nope.
The failure is in not actually adjusting and changing and trying something new.
Oh, absolutely. That's how people go broke, right? Is they think that they've hit the mark when it's like, well, you're not listening to what your consumers are saying. Like, it's not that you've launched at the wrong time or whatever. It's something's wrong. You have to pivot.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's so true. I think I'm the queen of pivots. I think I actually have a pivot problem. I think that I disguise ideas as pivots. Just go, oh, I'm going to try that. Oh, I'm going to try that. It's like, would you just focus on one thing, please, woman?
Oh, I mean, you've got to find the joy somewhere, right? If you're the one if you're the CEO, if you're the founder, like, I don't know, there's so much pressure on you. You might as well find enjoyment somehow. And if that's changing the business model, then that's changing the business model.
I love that so much. I'm going to use that I'm going to take that and use that as my excuse because I'm sitting on this idea and I can't let it go. And I'm going to be like, Maddie told me to find the joy.
She said I could do it.
I blame Maddie.
Yeah. I mean, if you're sitting on an idea for that long, then why let it go?
I know. But I really like your point, like finding the joy, because, you know, I do think we as like business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, whatever we all want to call ourselves these days, we do like the thing we're good at is being excited and coming up with new things and launching things and creating things. Yeah. And then, you get into business a couple of years in and you're like a slave to the to-do list.
Oh my God.
If you don't like circle back to the thing that ignited the excitement in the beginning, maybe that is where things kind of die and fall off a cliff when you get stuck in the to-dos.
Well, I think so, because I think it's ultimately kind of a bit like, well, why did you start a business in the first place? You know, like if you're just doing the to-dos, you might as well have a 9-to-5 job where you're probably getting more money more reliably. Like what? I don't know. That's my opinion, at least.
I love that. I'm stealing that opinion and I am going to do this thing that I want to do. Like today.
After we finish recording, you have to tell me what it is. I'm so curious.
Oh my God, so good. I will.
Okay.
There'll probably be a third podcast on my no. I need to draw the line.
Perfect.
I need to draw the line. Oh my God. Although, I know, but it's so funny. Like now that I like know the process of a podcast, like I kind of go, oh, I could do a podcast around this idea. Oh, I could do a podcast around this idea.
They are so easy to make and they're actually really fun as well. Like I love them as a form of like content marketing, but they also they just bring a little bit of the joy in because you kind of go back to being like, well, I'm talking about my passion, the thing that I'm good at, the reason why I started the business in the first place. Yeah. And then it like doubles as a marketing strategy. Like it's freaking genius.
Oh my God. I know. And I literally said this to my partner the other day. I'm like, I think the thing that I like about my business is just talking to people. I'm like, can I just make money being a podcast host?
Oh my God. Well, you're a salesperson. So if you were good as a salesperson, that's your whole thing, right? Yeah.
Totally. Oh my God. That's so cool. I'm just like scale. That's like a good way to scale being a salesperson is a podcast, I reckon. Like I can reach millions of people.
I think that you've hit the nail on the head.
Oh my God. I love that. So how did you actually... So when we like loop back to the beginning of Harness and no, this is brilliant. I love it. I've already started another business. What else could go wrong? What else could go wrong, Maddie?
10 minutes in, we're...
So when you first started Harness, were you like on the hunt for a content creation studio? Was it like, I've got this brilliant idea, I want a place, or like, so what was that story? Like, what's kind of the pre-Harness and how it kicked off?
Well, it's kind of a combination. So I did uni. I studied history and international relations. Pretty stupid.
Wow.
I know, so unrelated. But kind of during my later years of that, I was creating YouTube videos. And then I started a podcast with my friend. And there was actually a podcast studio here in Brisbane at a really affordable price. Yeah. And we went there for probably 3 or 4 months. But then it closed down. And I still don't know why. But it closed down and I was kind of like, oh, but that was a really good idea. Like that was a smart, like that's cool. That's innovation, you know? And then there was kind of this moment where I was like, well, hang on a second. It doesn't have to just be podcast studio. I actually need somewhere to film my YouTube videos. I can't just keep doing this at home. I don't have the equipment. I don't have the privacy, the space, whatever. And so I was like, well, why don't I just do it all? It all kind of falls under the same umbrella of content creation, right? So I was like, it's not like it's completely unrelated concept. So I literally was like, I can probably just do it myself. And it did take, to be fair, it took a little while from that point to it actually starting. But most of that was actually trying to find a place to rent because I was 23 years old, obviously had no like credit score. I'd only lived out of home like once before. So I only had one like residential rental as to kind of prove I would keep paying. I didn't even have a business plan. So the person who eventually had leased to me, she was like, oh, you know, I was your age when I bought this and I ran my business out of the front door and I'm just going to give you a go. And I was like,
oh, I love that. That's so good.
She is the sweetest woman. She's very, very kind. And she basically just kind of took a shot on me. And so as soon as I signed the lease, I was like, fuck.
Oh, shit. Now we got to make this happen.
Oh, yeah. And I think I grew up pretty, we weren't extremely wealthy, but I'm comfortable. We were privileged. And so I've been working since I was 13 or 14 because mum was like, you got to get a cafe job, whatever. So I'd been in a hospo for 10 years at that point. The best. I know, bless her. I'd been in a hospo for 10 years. But we've kind of a privileged home life. So I didn't really have a concept of money up until that point. And so then I signed a lease and suddenly I was liable for a lot of money a week. I was like, oh my God, how do I make this work? What have I gotten myself into here? and it has literally just been that was 18 months ago. So it has literally just been 18 months of being like, how do I pay my bills?
I think that is like the plight of every business owner everywhere. It's just, what the heck am I going to do this month to pay rent or pay my bills?
Absolutely. And kind of circling back around to what you were saying before about finding the joy. It's kind of like, I think that is exactly where business owners get stuck, because you do just get into this absolute funnel of being like, I have so many responsibilities. And I was really lucky because mum and dad let me move back in home. So I wasn't paying rent. Normally they kind of were helping me with food and all my other stuff. So all I was liable for was the business expenses. I can't even imagine the stress of everything else on top of that. And I still got sucked into the, oh my God, where is the joy in this? What have I done? What am I doing? Why would I think at 23 years old it was a good idea to start a business? Like,
Oh my God. So how did you climb out of that?
Oh, such a good question. I mean, it kind of happened honestly by accident. Sorry.
Okay. Everyone hates us already in this podcast.
Literally.
But it probably wasn't an accident. It was probably like, I don't even know what you're going to say yet, but it was probably like all of your hard work stacking up, not an accident.
A little bit. So it was kind of, again, a combination. So the studio rental stuff kind of aside, this was how the social media side of it got born, is because, so it was a friend of mum's who owns a business here in Paddington, and that company had just like blown up. They'd gotten really big. They had a whole like marketing team that they were paying from Melbourne or Sydney or whatever, really big deal, and a PR team as well. They were paying extortionate amounts of money to. Like they told me how much they were paying per month. I was like, that's ridiculous. And we got to talking. I was like, oh, Harness social media is kind of going really well. I'm learning a lot. And she was like, oh, do you want to run my social media? I was like, I don't know if I'm qualified for that. She was like, well, look, the reality of it is I'm going to have to pay you way less money than I pay them, and they're not getting very good output. So if you can replicate what you've been doing for Harness for me, I'll be pretty happy to keep paying you. I was like, okay.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah.
So I kind of signed on with them, and I'm completely self-taught on social media. So I haven't done a marketing degree or anything along those lines. So I just kind of dove straight in. We signed a contract, and I was like, wow, I'll just give it my best shot. And then, so we've been doing that for probably 8 or 9 months now. So they haven't fired me yet, so I must be doing something right.
I mean, I think that's the thing about social though. Like, it's very easy to say I didn't go to like uni for marketing or whatever. I'm self-taught, but I kind of feel like you have to have a little bit of that in you for social. It literally changes every day. Like if you went to uni and studied, so I'm very old. When I went to uni, Instagram didn't exist. But it's like, so imagine like, and all of my businesses, like around like influencers, social media, blah, blah, blah. And none of that existed when I went to uni. So I kind of feel like one of the keys to like, any industry is you kind of got to like just keep learning and keep adapting and keep experimenting.
Oh, absolutely. And particularly with something like social media, like the algorithms change every other week. So the things that I learned this time last year they mean nothing now, like those tactics wouldn't work now. So it's, it is very much a can keep learning kind of situation.
Yeah. And I think like, even like social media aside, it's probably just a good like business owner mindset to have about everything in your business. Like, you have to wear so many hats, right? Nobody starts a business and they're like, oh, I just happen to be an expert in finance. I happen to be an expert in social media. I happen to be an expert in whatever the industry is that you're already in. Maybe you're an expert in that and that's why you started, but you've got to learn so much. It's probably like a good life philosophy to have.
Oh, it's really, really, really kind of circles back around to that idea of pivoting, right? It's not just in the actual business model or whatever that you need to pivot. It's also in the way you learn, what you're learning. Like I genuinely, when I first started, like the money side of things, like the actual bookkeeping and whatever, I was like, I'm just going to wing this. I found out very quickly it's not something that
not a good thing to wing, is it? Yeah, I've done that too. Really,
yeah. Oh, goodness. So yeah, I don't know. And you just kind of, again, you have to go, okay, well, I can't do this. I can't learn how to do this. My brain is just not wired for numbers. So I'm going to pay someone to do it. And so then you have to be like, okay, how am I going to, again, get this money? How am I going to make this work? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's an interesting thing to think about too. Like, I think we go, okay, we're starting a new business, and then we kind of don't realize how much it costs to start a business.
Oh my God, no.
There's all those things like, okay, I kind of need a bookkeeper, or even if it's not a bookkeeper and it's an accountant just to do the returns or your BAS or whatever, it all costs money.
Oh, and they're all very specialized, and there's a reason why we can't do it and they can. And it is way more money than you kind of think it's going to be. But
oh my God, I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is that, like, okay, and every time you go, right, I need this person is okay, cool. Well, how am I going to make more money in my business to support the people I need to run my business?
Oh, it is. So that's a lot of my problem at the moment is I'm like, okay, I have a lot of work going at the moment. And I'm like, I'm getting to the point where I just feasibly can't deliver it by myself, but I'm not really making enough money to be able to pay someone to do it for me. So I'm in this place where I'm like, okay, does this mean I need to put up my fees? Does it mean, like, what does it mean? You know, how am I going to scale the business?
Yeah. And I think that's like such a good like topic to put a pin in, because I kind of feel like everyone gets to that point where they're like, okay, I started a business as like a solo founder, solopreneur, whatever we want to call them.
Yeah.
And then I've gone, okay, what is it that I actually offer? Some of it's like service-based. So it's your time, basically you're selling your time.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we do things that are a little bit more scalable, like a course or software or a, e-commerce. Maybe that's scalable, just depends. There's like another whole set of problems, right? Like you've got to buy inventory. Oh my God. So I think that is like a point in everyone's business where they go, okay, I've kind of hit my ceiling on this current model. What is actually next?
Yeah. And it's one of those moments where it's like, okay, you do have to shift the business model, right? You have to, this is another pivot point where you're like, okay, what I am doing right now is fine. It's working. But if I want to get
and pat on the back for getting this far.
Yeah. Yes, but if you want to get any bigger, it's like, okay, this is going to require not just a major shift in thinking, but a major shift in the other way the business is run, which I think is really scary. And the reason why I kind of haven't made any moves forward in it is because I'm like, okay, but if I put up my prices, is that going to alienate my current clients? Like what does that mean for the work I already have? What if I do this and it means that everyone hates me and then I put someone on and I suddenly can't pay them anymore? I'm like, that was that was a whirlpool. All my anxieties just really came out of my mouth.
This is now a therapy session.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's so true. And ironically, I just listened to a podcast on this very topic.
There you go.
And I'm going to share it with you. And if we even had show notes, I'd put this in them. I really need to get onto my show notes. That's like another thing on my to-do list. But yeah, so about, A, raising your prices, B, then what products you can actually have in conjunction with your services. So like, I mean, the interesting thing, right, is you create this podcast, right? Like all I do is show up, record, but then you're the person that actually edits it, gets it online, like does all of the things. I kind of feel like there's probably people listening in right now who don't have a podcast for their business. And you and I are sitting here going, it's so easy. Everyone can do it.
Yeah.
But everyone else is like, you crazy people. I have no idea where to start. And, so then it's like, do you have a course on podcasting? And like, what are those things that you can add into your business that are a little bit more scalable, in conjunction with maybe raising your prices that like over time start to stack up?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, I kind of get stuck in this headspace of being like, what else can I offer? It's almost this moment where I'm like, I've got no creativity left. I have no idea what other services or products to offer. But that's a really good idea. I'm going to steal
totally.
that.
Totally. I actually thought of it because I'm like, I want to do a course to show people how easy it is to start a business, because so many people I talk to are like, I don't know what to do, like registering business name. And I'm like, the only thing that matters when you start a business is making money and getting customers. And like literally with platforms like Squarespace and stuff, you could have a website up and running like today. And I don't think people realize that you could start a business. I have air quotes for people listening in, literally in an afternoon. It doesn't have to be crazy complicated.
Absolutely
and so
not.
I thought
like 24 hours for the business name to be registered. Like it's $80 or something. It's nothing.
Exactly. And I'm like, I think it's the same for podcasts, right? And so when I thought about the starting a business course, I was like, well, you should do one for podcasting to show people how easy it is. Like literally podcasting, in my opinion, is as easy as having a meeting, because all I do is I sit on Zoom and I talk to people.
Almost. You're almost just kind of guiding the conversation. Even you just sit back and
I contribute nothing. I'm like, no one wants to hear from me anymore. Not about me.
I've listened to the episodes. I know the truth.
But that's really interesting. Like I think about, there's got to be so many people listening in right now who are in the same boat, right? Who are kind of going, oh my God, I feel like I literally cannot take on anymore, where to from here. So that kind of idea, like, how can I teach people who maybe don't want to pay for my services how to DIY it? That's interesting. And also even if so it's almost like if you go, okay, I want to put my prices up to X, for my next client, I'll do that. So it's like, so I now take on no more clients unless they're at double my rate. So then it's kind of just in case you have any attrition of like current clients, then any new one is already on the new pricing model. So that can be like a way to like slowly move to it as well.
That makes a lot of sense. See, and I think I've actually just put the prices up for the studio itself, almost double. It was a pretty large amount. And I had one person email me and be like, oh, look, I totally understand why you're doing it. Is there any chance we can stay at the old price because I just couldn't afford it at the new one? I was like, of course, I'll make that work. Literally all of the other emails I got about it were people being like, oh my God, congratulations. You really needed to put your prices up. I'm like,
everyone knew they were getting a good deal.
Yeah, they did.
Oh, that is so good.
I've got proof that I should do it, but yeah.
Isn't it funny though? Like all of the things you said, which is like, what if people hate me? What if everyone leaves? Or if this, everyone was like, nah, it's fine.
Yeah, literally.
It's like we're our own worst enemy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Particularly when it comes to business and you have all those responsibilities, because you do just get in this whole spiral of what if this means I can't pay for things, or what if this means I have to, not that I have a team, but what if it means I have to fire somebody or whatever? Yeah.
And I think that's like, you kind of mentioned the team thing as well. Like that is what holds you back from getting help, because you're like, yeah, what if I get to a point where I can't pay for them anymore? And then I've like promised this person work or whatever. I found a really good one for that is freelancers. So before you bring on a full-time person, kind of go, okay, I'm willing to take a risk on, 5-10 hours a week, a month, whatever it is, just to get a little bit of help. And then it kind of, while you're building up like a bit of a bank and what have you, and then kind of increase that rather than bringing on someone where, you're like, oh my God, I'm responsible for their whole livelihood. What if this doesn't work out?
Oh, I have thought about that as well. And then I've kind of been like, oh, I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm so stupid, but no, you're right. I think as you were kind of speaking, I was like, I think my thing, like mum has been such a blessing to me because she's been able to give me so much insight. But so she ran her own consultancy. She wasn't part of one of the big four or whatever. She had her own for a really long time, 10 or 15 years. And so I've grown up watching her have her own business. Yeah. And that's been a blessing in a lot of ways. And then the flip side of that is I've also seen all of the bad sides. I've seen her take on staff for work, seeing the work run out and her have to put staff off, for example. And so it's always been this kind of I'm like, oh my, I've seen not worst case, but I've seen bad things happen, and you don't, exactly. You get really scared of replicating that, through no fault of anyone's. It's just the way business works, really. Yeah.
I mean, oh, look, I'm not going to lie. So I have been in that position, like even with COVID, we had like, oh my God, I can't even remember how big the Scrunch team was at the start of COVID. And we like did everything we could to hold on to everybody. And there just came a point where we had to let a few people go. And it was horrific. Like you just feel like the worst person on the planet. And, you know, and sometimes employees aren't very understanding, and I get that it's not their job to be understanding of you as a business owner, but there's you know, but it is, so it's so hard to be able to, or to have to, you know, share that news with them when, you know, as a business owner, you never want things to go bad. You never want a slow month or a couple of months, or you never want a global pandemic to happen.
No. Well, so see, I think
it is real.
Yeah. That is that's a really, I know there's always a problem, you know, there's always something to solve in business, but I think the pandemic was such a really like specific situation, because it's like everyone's being laid off. There is no work for anybody, and you don't want to contribute to it, but you don't have any work either. And I think there can be a real, not always, but there can be a disconnect between an employee and an employer. And that's not because of the dynamic that is specific to your relationship with your employees. I think it's just a general, employees are wary of their bosses. They're wary of their managers. They're wary of business owners. They think that we have a fuck ton of money, where it's like, I haven't
$1 million in my bank account.
Yeah, literally. I'm like, I'm making way less money than any of my friends are. And they think that just because I own a business, and so that really translates as well to employees. Again, all of the people I know along here are like, no, my salary is less than my employees. Like, what are you doing? Why are we even in business then, you know?
Totally. And that's, I think, the thing too, where we've got to go, okay, there is going to be a point where I cap out on the amount of stuff I can do, and I have to make that decision. Do I want to figure out how to make this business scale beyond me, or should I go and get a bloody job, you know?
And I think there's no shame in doing that. I think a lot of people assume that if an entrepreneur or a founder leaves the business and goes back to being a PAYG, then the business must have failed. And it's like, no, that's not at all what happens. You just get to a point where you're like, I don't need the stress of this anymore. I've done what I wanted to do, and I feel like I can go back, or I feel like I want to go back. I don't know. There shouldn't be any shame in being like, a business wasn't for me.
Totally. And I think that the thing people forget there as well is like, so when you're a business owner, you're actually in 10 different jobs. So sometimes people make the decision just because they want to go back to what they're good at. You know, they actually like, you know what, I'm an awesome ops person, or I'm an awesome creative, or I'm an awesome this. It's like, I want a job that pays me just to do what I'm great at and what I love. I don't want 10 jobs that I don't like for less money.
Oh, absolutely. I remember there was one kind of moment at the beginning. I was like, okay, before I brought on a bookkeeper, I was like, okay, I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to do it on Friday morning. And mum was like, look, I get you want to do it during work hours, but it's not really work. It's actually just like an extra added job that business owners have. It's not billable hours, so you can't do it during billable hours. Well, you can, obviously. It's not a hard and fast rule, but it's kind of like,
it's a good philosophy to get in the mindset of. I like that.
But I recently, oh God, kind of my cousin, she was working for a company, and the owner of the company just kind of got to this point where she was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And she was so over it that she just said to my cousin, she was like, look, I'm going to sign this business over to you. Literally $0. She was just like, I'm just signing it over. And so my cousin's now running this company. Just because, the business owner, she'd been doing it for 20 years. It was just like, I just don't really feel like it anymore. I don't know. Like, good on her, really. If I worked in a company for 20 years, I'd be like, give me my money. But
exactly the same. I'd be like, where's my $1 billion at the end?
Exactly,
But it's interesting, like that fully circled back to find the joy, right? And And maybe sometimes we need to be okay with, oh my God, and full circle, like sometimes the plan doesn't pan out, and that's okay. And us as business owners, we are allowed to change our mind, change our products, change our rates, leave. We kind of did create this monster. If we want to change the way it looks, then we're the only ones that can actually do it.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like most of the things I've talked about today have been really negative, but I think that's the real, it's kind of reality, isn't it? Right? It's not that it's negative, it's just the reality. But I think the real joy in a business is you are at the helm. You do kind of get to a point where you realize you've created a monster, you're on a hamster wheel, but you also, because you created it, you're like, well, I can do what I want. If I'm going to change the business, then that's up to me. I get to do that,
Yeah.
I think that's a real privilege rather than like a responsibility.
Totally. And it's so funny. Like I was just having I know that at the start I was like, I've got this new idea that I want to play with. But I'm like, also, what's the harm in, okay, if it's 5 o'clock and I'm supposed to be clocked off for the day, well, then that's what I'm going to experiment with that idea in my own time, because I am allowed my own time as a business owner too, apparently.
Oh, that's a whole other
podcast. Yeah. Oh my God. I love it so much. Okay, Maddie, you have been absolutely incredible. Do you have one last final piece of wisdom for our Spark community? Anyone that might be in those early days of starting a business for themselves and maybe wondering what the hell they did? Any lesson that you've learned or piece of wisdom to help people keep going?
I think about this every single time I hear this question, and my answer is I think it's just about having self-awareness. So I think you just have to be willing to look around you, but also look inside yourself and be like, what am I feeling? What is the reality of this situation? Do I need to go forward with it? Do I need to take a step back? Do I need to get myself out of it completely? Whatever it kind of is, I feel like it's one of those things. Yeah, you just have to, you can't lie to yourself about what's going on and about your business. You have to be honest, because otherwise that's where mistakes are made. That is how you go broke. So no one wants that.
I love it. You are the best, Maddie. Thank you so much for being on the other side of Spark TV today. It's been so good to chat to you. I'm glad we finally made time.
So am I. This is great. Now, every time I hear an episode, I'm going to be like, wow, I totally get the pressure of being the guest.
So good. Awesome. Thanks for joining us, Maddie.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.